right. Welcome to Kubernetes SIG Cloud Provider developer call for Wednesday, June 3rd. We are governed by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. So in short, treat one another with respect. And if you have topics that you would like to bring up for this call, please either raise hand, drop them in the chat, or add them to the doc. And I'm putting the doc in the chat so that you can put yourself in the doc if you would like to put yourself under June 3rd. Scroll down to where it says June 3rd and say that you're here so that we know. Fantastic. Okay. I think the first topic that we have is, before we jump into agenda items, do we have any sub-project updates? And I'm saying this because a magical Walter has just appeared. So perhaps he has a sub-project update for us.
Not a whole lot. The API server network proxy, we fixed a couple of CVEs, been able to merge and update a bunch of things, and I'm hoping to get the 36 release out later this week. I know there were a couple of people mentioned in being interested in backports of some CVE fixes to earlier versions, but I haven't actually heard anyone. I had asked for folks to let me know how far they needed them backported, and I haven't actually gotten an answer to that. So if anyone has an opinion on how far they need them backported, it would be great to get an answer to that question. And I'm happy to we either in Friday's meeting or in Slack would be great.
Okay, so to be clear, you want to know which exact fixes they want ported and or to which versions, or both, the entire matrix they're looking for? Like, which info are you looking for?
Mostly how far to get which would be useful if they have a feeling about particular fixes they want backported, but mostly it's about how far back they want them backported.
Okay, all right, fantastic. Thank you, Walter. Any other sub-project updates? I don't know if we have anyone from Crow here today. Possibly not. I know that maybe Elmiko can update us. I think you did just get, or was it Walter? You just got Crow moved to use the correct community call infrastructure, I believe.
Yes, yes, I did. I switched them over from, I think, one of the members had been using their own corporate info, and so I switched them from the corporate info to the SIG Cloud Provider. So they should be on the same Zoom call as this one, just at a different time.
Perfect. Thank you for doing that. And I have not made it to one of their meetings in a dog's age, and now next time I can make it to one, I will go to the correct link, which will be great. Thank you for getting that updated everywhere. And does that mean that they are, do we have, 1.0 and, on the horizon, that sort of excitement?
1.0 is on the horizon. I say that having known that 1.0 has been on the horizon for a little while now. For those who are interested, I'll give the short version. We have one major feature left that we believe is necessary for 1.0, and that is the ability to version the RGDs and control how new RGDs get rolled out across a cluster, so that it isn't just, you push it and suddenly everything is at the new version. Most customers in production would like a more sane rollout scheme than that. I know that Barney and a few others have proposals, and there's a lot of discussion going on. And I think last I checked, we had not finalized a plan, and so that's sort of my guess is it'll take longer to finalize a plan than it will to implement the plan.
Which is reasonable, I think, right? I mean, if you want things to go well, spend the time to plan to have it go well. That sounds great to me. So then your call to action there is people should come to the alternating week Crow meeting if they would like to, or come on CNCF Slack and discuss it if they would like to or is it Kubernetes Slack? Forget. Kubernetes Slack, I think, to discuss Crow if they would like to get that major feature changed to their liking before things are finalized. Now is your chance. Great, fantastic. Okay, I think first agenda item then is Almico. You have a proposal.
Yep, this one's pretty easy, and is like the long tail of our due diligence, but it has been through almost three releases now since Chris first told us about the deprecation of the cloud provider Equinix Metal. And so in coinciding with the 1.37 release that is upcoming, I've opened the issue to archive that repo. And I don't think there's much to discuss here. Like I've been manually approving the like Dependabot updates and stuff like that for the cloud provider, but like I've been holding back on doing any of the Kubernetes updates or anything. So that cloud provider is pretty much frozen in I think like 1.34 state, even though it was getting kind of regular dependency bumps. But now it should be fine. Like it's got an announcement on the README and everything, so I think we're in good shape just to archive it. And then, yeah, I hope Bridget and Walter and Joel, like mind I put all your names on the org request as well, just because we had talked about this in the past. So.
Yeah, I went ahead and commented. I was looking because I'm not 100% sure if is there a slash command I should be using to approve because it's an issue. It's not a PR. So I'm not 100% sure what the logistics are, but I did comment with approval. But if
Right.
there's something else I should do, please tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I've got another archive request there as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know how these things get filled, but presumably someone's going to come along at some point and be like, "Oh yeah, we need to archive these," and they'll like fulfill
Okay.
it. Because I had opened up a request a month ago to I think or so to archive that
Okay.
the sample cloud provider repo we have that just isn't
Yeah.
used. So yeah.
I suspect we may have to go over on Kubernetes Slack and ask the GitHub admins. But if they don't take action on it in the near future, but you said there's one you've been waiting for a month. I think just pointing to the issue over on the GitHub admins discussion. I forget
Right.
exactly what it's called, but
Yeah,
let me go look.
I put a comment in the Contrabex channel, but I don't think anyone really did
I
anything
think you
about
have
it.
to at GitHub admins. I'm looking really
Yeah.
quick.
So I'll go back and try to get the GitHub admin's attention, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what it is like you have to add the GitHub admins, which is like on Slack, something that you can, it's a team or whatever that you can add.
Cool.
Okay,
Yeah. Well, yeah,
awesome.
that was it for me. Like, kudos to us. We're following the deprecation policy.
Awesome. Great. Let's see. And I see that and I have a topic, but I'm gonna put Serge's ahead of mine. Because I think you may have more that you want to share about that than my topic, which is short. A hybrid cloud provider topology label. Do you have something you want to share, or you just want to point us to a link? What would you like to discuss?
I update the PR, and one question which I have is label, a topological label. We need to understand which label we will use in the future to mark the platform, because there are many deployments, daemon sets required a special platform to run. And I was after of one CCM, Talos CCM. Talos is IP-driven Linux for Kubernetes, and I made for them the special label because it was very fast decision. We need to just have labels, and it was in cloud provider namespace, and probably I will send the link or example. And I don't think it's a good idea to have it here, but maybe it's okay. I don't know. Maybe you have thoughts about this.
Possibly.
In the PR, I make an example in topology as region and zone, because like all of us get used to use it. But not a cloud provider. It's just fast my decision many years ago.
Yeah. So Serge, thank you for updating the cap. I have not reviewed it again yet. I'm planning to do that before the end of this week, so I'll try to do another review. Yeah, I think I don't have a strong opinion on what the label should be. We should probably just follow like what has been done for the region and zone labels. We should follow in that pattern. And yeah, like I think naming is always tough, so we'll have to come up with a good name. But I'll look. Did you put the new label, the proposed label in the cap? Okay, cool. I'll add some comments there then when I read it, and if I have a better suggestion or something, I'll propose it there as well. But I think the main thing I think is that like we need the first cap, we need to scope on just the node lifecycling behavior, right? We need to exclude all the service and route stuff and everything.
I also checked the code of kubelet, and it has like allow list which labels we can pass through the CLI, and we can add this label also /platform, and that's it. And it's we spoke before about annotations and this like not IP annotation which we already have, and in some cases it's not additional annotation we need to remember. Say this, but we can just add the label on the start,
Right.
and that's it.
Yeah.
It's much easier, cheaper, and
yeah. No, I think it makes sense. I think the big concern, yeah, I think that's it, Bridget. The big concern that I have is this is going to be very fragile for some users. Like for users who are making heavy use of like services and route objects, once we start to introduce this, hybrid platform, we have to make sure that like we don't disrupt how those behaviors, like we shouldn't regress the behavior of like a load balancer type service. So we have to understand like a user is going to have to be able to set this up, and if they have if they have two cloud providers running, like we're gonna have to figure out like how do we turn off the service controller for one of them or something like, we're gonna have to instruct users to say, okay, don't run the service controller if you're doing this, or I want to make sure we avoid network brittleness, for users who are using this. So, but I'll read the cap and I'll leave my comments there and everything.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. And if anyone else is interested in commenting on that cup, I believe I put the correct link in the chat and in the agenda doc. And if we are talking about a different cup, then please correct it. I linked to the.
Yeah, that is the correct.
Okay.
You linked it.
All right, fantastic. Okay. All right, anything else on that topic, Serge or others?
No, I'll take an action item to get the review in. I just haven't had time yet.
Okay, great. I put a note in there, and I know that there was a meeting last week, which I think we probably have follow-ups on a lot of stuff from the meeting that I missed during Open Source Summit North America, but which, by the way, was great. But I'm noticing that KubeCon NA 2026 CFP just closed, which means the maintainer session is going to be open soon, and they'll be asking us for our maintainer sessions. And so, new question, which is the same question that we've asked many times. What topics do people want to put in for the Salt Lake City one in November? And do we have specific community members who maybe for some of these cups, or maybe for Crow, or maybe for API Server Network Proxy, like they want to feature some of the work of the SIG, because that could be great. We certainly can also do the kind of more standard thing that we do frequently, where we talk through top of mind things for the SIG, and that has also been well received. But I would just love to open floor, ask people what's top of mind for you that you would like to talk about at KubeCon. Yeah.
I was keeping on the back burner like the SIG update. I didn't necessarily have any ideas that were like popping to my head saying like, oh, we should do this or that. But like we've had a lot of really good responses from several of the things we've talked about over the last like year or two. So yeah, Walter, please.
I mean, anyone who's been at this thing for any length of time already knows what I'm going to say. I mean, Almiko certainly knows what I'm going to say. But I mean, we're making headway on the distro idea, and I'm going to go into. I always think that there is value in moving forward on that. I mean, there's some interesting topics like upgrades, how you handle upgrades, what people want out of upgrades. Do we need to separate out concepts like upgrading etcd from standardized ways to upgrade etcd, from upgrading nodes, from upgrading the control plane? Do we want to have some sort of standardized idea of system about like what the deployment types might be? I mean, we already know just internally for our own usage, we have differences between a standard test deployment, which I would have called a zonal cluster, from something that I would call like the minimum reasonable cluster, which I would call regional, from something that someone who's actually in production wants. And so, I would think that we may want to talk about ideas of what are the kinds of deployments that people care about, and can we have standard templates and how you would use them in each cloud provider? Like what is a CPU heavy? What about specialized GPU, TPU deployments versus large cluster deployments versus, I think when we start talking about distros and trying to make them, relatively obvious how you can get some sort of apples to apples version across cloud providers, there's a lot of value there. I was going to say, Almiko knew I was going to say this, but I'm still going to say.
I think that's a great idea. Like, I would love to hear more. I'm going to look a little over at Chris and others who might have opinions about GPUs, for example, and say like if we add the word AI to any proposal, it gets exciting for the reviewers. And I do think that there's a lot of slicing and dicing how we use the scarce and important resources in order to carry out the work of cloud provider while relegating like GPU usage to where it's going to have the most bang for the buck or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things there that I think are super high interest to the end users as to how they can save money and get more. So anything that's kind of tickling in people's minds about what could we make sure that we're building that helps people leverage their resources as best they can, I think would be really valuable. So, and Elmiko, you were weighing in there.
Well, I was, but then you said something interesting, and so now I'm thinking about that, No, I mean, like, I think I love, I love what Walter's talking about. I love the idea of distributions. Obviously that's close to a lot of the stuff that I work on too. Like I think marrying that, like we've talked about a couple different things here, and like what's on the top of my mind is what you were just saying, Bridget, about kind of like the AI hype cycle and how but that's also kind of indicative of this whole resource consumption kind of issue that we're dealing with across Kubernetes in general, right? Because like, and I'm going to collide a couple different SIG worlds here or whatever, but like, I do a lot of work in the SIG auto scaling world as well. And like something that's called like scheduler driven auto scaling or topology aware scheduling or workload aware scheduling. There's a lot of like interesting things happening right now. And I think as we start to talk about resource consumption, like we're getting into a lot of these issues with like the scheduling debates that are currently happening around Kubernetes. Now, in my mind, I want to contrast that with what Walter was just saying about like the distribution notion and whatnot. And it's like, you know, I love the idea that we would have some sort of like notion of what a different, like at the very basic level, we could say, okay, here's like a single node distribution, here's like a high availability type distribution, like these basic concepts. But would it ever extend up to the point where we're saying like, yeah, like here's the AI distribution or something, or like, these kind of higher level uh abstractions, I guess. Like that's what I'm kind of curious about too. Yeah, I'll pass it back to Walter.
I mean, I think it would. And in fact, one of the things I'm working on in the background on COPS is working out what kind of changes you want to be able to support to the control plane for some of these things. So I have an entire idea in mind, but just to whet people's appetites, I will say I think that when you start getting into large clusters, and honestly, for the big AI stuff, I think we're talking like 50,000 node clusters. One of the interesting problems you get is what I call as a need for a heterogeneous control plane. You may need a lot of control plane nodes, but only one of them is going to be a cloud controller manager. Only one of them is going to be a kube controller manager. Only one of them is going to be a scheduler. But you may have 20 control plane nodes. And I think you can get a lot of efficiency by, for instance, breaking your control plane into what I'm going to call the front and back end of your control plane. So the front end may just be a series of API server only nodes who deal with all incoming API traffic. And that may be like 12 medium-sized nodes. And then you may want to have 4 or 5 large backend nodes that have the full complement of API server components, but they don't take outside traffic. The API servers running on those nodes are set up to only take traffic from the control plane components, which allows you to do some interesting things like turn off priority and fairness, because you don't need to care about priority and fairness. And then the API server becomes more responsive to the control plane node or control plane components. So I think there are some interesting deployment scenarios that you may end up wanting to do on sort of the large enterprise or AI model that you wouldn't do on a normal cluster.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of really interesting and good stuff there that we probably, as we get to the point where we need to put together a proposal for the maintainer session, we should be thinking about this stuff, because I always think in the back of my mind, how do we make sure the message from the maintainer session is broadly applicable to audience members who might choose bits and pieces of it to do something with? And something like this would certainly meet that bar. Almiko, you have your hand up. And I know that the three of us are doing a lot of back and forth, but if anyone else wants to jump in, please bring your ideas, because that is very key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and now I've lost my train of thought. So going back to I liked where Walter kind of started with some of this stuff, but and this was I think the feedback we got from the last panel discussion we did about the distributions. Like I had talked to some people in the hallway track who, there were a lot of ideas and excitement and interest in the notion of like distributions and what that might mean. Like, is there any way that instead of us just doing like a presentation about what we think about distros and kind of the cool stuff that Walter is working on in COPS and everything, like, is there a way that we could have like more of a back and forth? Could we have a session that's more of like a question and answer or request for comments kind of thing? It's like we want to have a discussion about distributions. We want people to come to this session with questions, with features, with demands, with whatever things that they want to see And maybe we start off with a little bit of like, here's where we're at, here's what we're thinking, but we need help to guide this, you know? So
Mhm.
like, I don't know what kind of session that is, but like, I think it'd be really cool to be able to have that type of just really good conversation with the people who are there. But, you know, obviously then if nobody shows up, like, what do you do?
Yeah. So I actually think that's a great idea. I've seen that done to good effect, but I would want to open it a little more broadly because, as you can imagine, there are going to be many people who may not be in a room in Salt Lake City in November. And so I would, instead of just taking Q&A from the exact people who happen to be in that room, I think that if we did some surveying ahead of time, then we could distill the themes from the survey, and address the questions that people are bringing. I think that especially even bringing and socializing the more topical or more relevant um, requests and even answers coming from the community, so that we're not just presenting our own off the cuff opinions, but instead presenting kind of the body of research and outcomes that we're thinking about based on the things the community is asking for. Does that make sense? Like, just
That
because
makes
I don't
absolute
want to,
sense. No, I think it makes
I don't
total
want to
sense.
only represent the opinions of people who
No,
happen to
no,
be able to come to that session. So
no, for sure. And like, you know, sorry.
that's always the danger with the live Q&A, is like it can end up giving you a very unrepresentative.
Well, right. And that, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm absolutely sensitive to that. This is like
Yeah.
obviously whatever we do
Yeah.
at KubeCon is like an event that happens at KubeCon, and it is kind of exclusionary by nature, you know, but this wouldn't meant to be like the be all end all, right? This is like just one point in the conversation we're having. So I love the notion of surveying to get like some seed information, because that also solves the problem if nobody shows up. Well, we still got stuff to talk about. Um, but also the notion that this is just one point in the conversation, and that, you know, whatever, like, not all the decisions are going to be made there at KubeCon. We're not going to, like, you know, sign the contracts on stage or whatever, you know, then. So like, yeah, like I like the idea of kind of advancing it that way. But yeah, like I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, the structure of what you're describing then, I think, is like a Q&A and kind of AMA forum. And that's 100% something that we can accomplish. I just want to make sure that we also make sure that the people who come to the room and the people who watch the video um, don't just feel like they're watching the rabbit hole on two really active GitHub issues that are not relevant to them. Like, I've seen this happen, and you know how that can go. And so like that's why I always go for a little bit more curation, just to make sure that we give things that are broadly relevant, as opposed to one guy who came to this is really happy and 98 people are kind of bored. Like,
Yeah, I mean, definitely a danger to watch out for. I think the way that Walter kind of couched the conversation, though, like I like that because it really opened it up pretty wide and everything. Chris, I there.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering what the target audience really is here, because if we want to appeal to the big AI scalers, they've all had to solve this stuff already, so they're not looking to start it. Well, and this is my opinion, so I want to bounce it off you all. I don't think they're looking to start fresh with a new cloud provider templated out for AI, because they already had to do all that. But so is like, are we targeting new AI startups with this? Like, who's it for, really?
Yeah,
So I will say I think they've solved some of these problems. I don't think they've solved all of them. No hints in terms of things I've already mentioned, but I mean, you know, even the problem I just described, I'm not solving it for no reason. I know of at least one or two that want that solution. Um, Having said that, I think there's, yeah, who needs a 60,000 cluster? I mean, maybe I can only count on my hands. I don't have to go to my feet yet uh, to work out who else needs a 60,000 node cluster. Um, so I mean, but it's an interesting. It's one of those, like, what was it that Elmico called it earlier? The AI whichever loop. It's the soundbite to get people interested. I also think that there are other places where, I mean, I think your point is valid, and I think that the day-to-day customer is probably cares more about some of the other things Almiko mentioned, like, how do I get an IPv6 cluster? How do I get an HAD, a highly resilient cluster? How do I mean, some of those may actually matter more to actual customers setting things up. But I think at the same time, anything you put AI onto, I think Bridget also mentioned, anything you put AI on immediately gets people's interests. And so I think trying to find that sweet spot between solving everyone's problems and making it look interesting has value.
Did you want to respond, Chris?
I guess the one thing that tickled in my head is, and probably this is my bias because of where I've landed the last couple jobs, is focusing on bare metal management and additional features and processes around that don't really exist in your default startup for cloud provider, right? That's it. Nothing, no genius inspirations. Just like, oh yeah, bare metal stuff. Probably could get some people interested in that.
So I mean, going back to your original question there, Chris, like I think like I kind of threw AI out there, and I think Bridget brought it up too, just for like the same thing Walter's kind of mentioning, just kind of the hook to kind of drag everybody. But for me, yeah, I think if we focus too much on AI, that has the problem you're describing, which is like some people have already solved this, and they're not going to be interested in coming to see it. But then B, kind of what Bridget was mentioning, it's like is this talk just about the one special topic that someone wanted to hear about? So like, yeah, for me, I like the wider issue that like the stuff that Walter starts to get into, which is like, okay, what if we had 6 or 7 different like distribution styles or something, or what if we had some sort of guideline for creating distributions that people in the community could do, like, and as we start to get into these questions, like, and I'm basing this based on what people said to me after the last thing we talked about distributions. Like now I want to dig more into those people who are like, yes, we need distributions. It's like, okay, tell me why. Like, tell me what you need, right? And I want to engage that conversation a little deeper because, like, yeah, like, we can sit here in this meeting and talk about, well, we want an HA version and we want a single node distribution and we want an AI distribution and we want a Walter's 50,000 node distribution or whatever, right? We can talk about that, but we're totally disconnected from what people might actually want, right? And so I want to learn, like, okay, we've got this giant grab bag of things that we think might be interesting. I want to find out, like, is there like a subset of them that are actually really interesting to people? And then those would be the ones we could start with or something, right? Like if people are coming out and we just keep hearing over and over again that everybody wants a single node distribution of Kubernetes or whatever, that's like really what's on their mind, right? Then it's like, okay, maybe we should start by, this has nothing to do with cloud providers, but maybe we should start with something like that, But I think we're at the point now where it's like, yeah, we're pushing into doing the research to kind of understand what does the community want out of this. Like we know what we want out of it. What I want out of it is like better testing platforms. But that, again, that's me being rabbit holed into an issue on GitHub that nobody cares about. I don't know if that actually answers anything, but
Okay, so I'm looking at this, and yes, and we all want better testing. Um, um, I'm writing Elmika wants better testing platforms, and then I'm writing so say we all. Okay, but I think what I'm hearing, I've heard a couple of things that make me wonder, do we want to be looking at issues on GitHub to give us data about what people are asking for? Do we want to consider trying to do some other sort of surveying? Do we want to use other various, dive into the subreddits or what have you? Like, where exactly do you want to be getting the data that will inform decisions coming, out of this discussion.
I mean, I love the idea of a survey. Like, I don't know, like I know surveys are really hit or miss, and it takes a lot of kind of thinking and whatnot to put together a good survey. But I think we've got time now before November. Like, we could certainly take a month, think about a survey that we like, that that has questions that we think are relevant to this, and then we could potentially spend a couple months circulating the survey on email and whatnot, and just see if we can get as much feedback as possible to help us out. Like, I think it's interesting. I don't have a lot of experience running surveys, so I don't know like how efficacious it will be, but I like the idea.
Well, I was involved with a survey around Kubernetes LTS, and so I can go into some detail about like the survey design methodology and data normalization and bringing the results into a usable form. I didn't do all of it myself. I was involved in a little of it, but I saw enough of it that I could probably help replicate some of that. But I bet Walter has ideas. Walter?
I don't actually, so I'm all for other people putting their hands up, and uh, I think it is an interesting thing to work out how to do, and not an area of my specialty by any means. I would rely on someone like you to help with that. But I was going to ask on your idea of the bug. I mean, I think it is worth checking, but my gut feeling is that if someone wants something like this and can't find it, their first instinct is probably not file a bug, which makes me think there's unlikely to be any bugs, but then sort of brings up the question of what would their first instinct be, and is there something else, somewhere else we should be looking? Because I'm not sure. Do they just go away frustrated? I'm not sure what they do, and if there's somewhere there we can get signal. I mean, I think the fundamental idea is great. I'm just not quite sure where we would get that signal. Slack. Yeah, I mean, I think to some degree I am reminded of, and this is, I'm sorry, I'm being a little silly, but I'm reminded of some of the Apple things from many years ago. Like when they came out with, the iPad, and my first thought, because I'm an idiot, was why would I want an iPad? And of course now we all have, if we don't have an iPad, we have some equivalent thereof. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I just didn't understand. And I didn't know that I wanted this thing when they came out with it. And I wonder to what degree, we're going to we need to make people aware that something is an option for them to start actually going, oh, well, if this is an option, this is the version of the option we want. And I think that's where something like the the survey or whatever, maybe some of the value it provides isn't the direct one, but just kind of getting it through people's psyche that this is even an option.
Yeah. All right. There's a lot to consider there. I don't have more to add to that right this second, except that I think we're going to need to move on that. And I think that we're going to need to see who wants to be participatory in that. I can participate. I cannot drive the entire thing due to bandwidth. So yeah, let's see what people think. El Miko.
Yeah. I would love to reach out to Red Hat's OSPO to kind of ask some of these questions to them, because we have some really good folks in our OSPO, and I would love to just hear their opinion. They might have some suggestions. So I'm happy to go like do a little more kind of back end research around this, just to see if we might, shake loose an expert, or maybe someone has a really good idea. But I think going back to what Walter was saying, yeah, I think this is the difficult part about us making a survey, is that like, yeah, we would have to be like, okay, like if here's the buffet, if you could choose these options, like, which one would you want? And it's just gonna be like, well, I want all those options. It all looks good. So like, yeah, what level, if we were going to do something like an outreach, what level of education would need to be done in order to bring this up? So that's why I was saying, like, maybe I'll reach out to the OSPO at Red Hat and just see, like, maybe they have some other ideas on ways to kind of get this information. But then secondarily, what I think about too is that, like, we already have distributions, right? They're just not community distributions. Like, like there's all sorts of Kubernetes distributions, K3s, Minikube, all these different things that are out there. Like, those are distributions of Kubernetes. Those are opinionated packagings with installers of their own and everything. And so I think, probably what we need to do now, or what I'm inspired by, is thinking back to the early Linux days. Like, what does it take to break out of that mold to say, okay, there's going to be some common shape here that exists across the community. Does that mean we need to have like does your distro have to have an installer or something? Can you just say like Cops is my installer? Like what kind of notions are there? And then we're not even getting into the like all the upgrading stuff and everything. It's like, well, what mechanism is doing that and everything. So like for me, there are kind of some foundational questions about like how do we break out of this kind of corporate distribution world or commercial distribution world and move into more of a community distribution world. And that's where some of my knowledge is a little low, and I'd like to find more people to talk with about this and everything.
Yeah, I think that you're probably going to have to go find all your Gen 2 and Arch Linux friends, would be my guess. It's like there's a wide world of of distros out there.
Right. And like I've got a lot of Fedora friends, and I'm very close to how I watch how Fedora does everything. But I mean, it's like obviously we don't, we're not necessarily trying to build a Fedora like of Kubernetes, because that's a huge infrastructure, right?
Right.
But like the pattern that's at the core of it is something that could be useful to us. So yeah, maybe I'll reach out to some of those people too, just see if they
Mhm.
would.
Okay, great. Okay, well, turns out we had a lot to chat about. I love when that happens, when we start with a kind of low agenda and then we have a great conversation. Um, let's see, I don't think I have my sharing working right this second. So, Miko, if you wouldn't mind showing us any open issues that you want to take us through.
You need to make me co-host or something.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Everything is exciting.
I want
Always.
something that Walter said earlier made me write down a note in my notebook here, like the notion of would we ever need sharded CCMs? Because I think if we got into the
Oh,
notion of sharded CCMs, that also touches into the hybrid stuff that Serge is looking like. Like if we started to develop the notion that CCMs could be sharded for like extremely large clusters, like that also touches into the notion that CCMs have some sort of like group of things that they're watching, which also touches very much into like the things that Serge is looking at right now. So it was just a random thought that crossed my mind.
that is exciting. And I took a note of it up in the section about talking about the hybrid cloud provider, because why not? Okay.
I will say
Yes.
on that one, um, I think the answer may well be yes. I have been in multiple discussions with the API machinery team about trying to shard the KCM. And in fact, if we want to go further, I would say we should try meeting with the API machinery folks, because I think the problems of sharding either the CCM or the KCM are essentially the same.
I mean, that it's cool to hear that you're having those conversations. Like I'd love to be a fly on the wall. Okay, so these are the open triage issues that need triage right now. I thought this remove the cluster directory one was already like we don't need to touch that one. I'm not even going to go near that one. But this one is new. And someone, I think this person um, pinged in Slack about this. But when I looked at it, I don't think this is cloud provider related. This is like, it needs someone in GCE to take a look at this. Although I guess technically it's coming from one of our tests.
Are we volunteering Walter as tribute?
Maybe Walter could suggest someone. I don't know.
Walter might be frozen. So perhaps we'll have to revisit this if he returns.
Just Walter, I'm going to CC you on this. Maybe you can find someone.
We now have two Walters. Walter Prime, are you interested in taking a look?
Yeah, sorry, my Zoom window crashed for some reason. Definitely, yeah, definitely interested in taking a look. I just need to, yeah.
I'm kind of like I need to finish the analysis I've been doing on our testing because it's like I don't even think this test is doing anything at the moment. So, all right,
Test that's failing and doing nothing.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, looking at and looking at the failures too, like I'm just not. Anyways, yeah, like it's going to require someone who knows that architecture a little bit better to kind of look at it and say, why is, what's going on here? This one we've already addressed, although like I think this one is another one that needs that I thought we talked about this. Yeah, Kirthan had, I think we need someone from AWS to kind of follow up on this one. And then, yeah, the next one is Sergio's. We've already kind of talked about that. Although, like, I guess at this point, we should probably accept triage on this since we're getting into the cap and everything. So just to get this off of our list.
That makes sense.
I mean, we're, if we're gonna support the cap, and it seems like we are, then I think, yeah, we've accepted it at this point. Okay, this is a really old one. Oh, but this is also one that Serge opened up as well.
Yeah, I can share a little bit the background of this issue.
Yeah, please.
Sometimes we need to share like hypervisor details under the hood, what implementation we use and stuff like this. And in Linux KMO virtualization, we cannot pass through this knowledge. The Linux paravirtualization drivers cannot understand and can't share the full picture what under the hood on the hypervisor. And we already have some daemons who gather the information from the Linux kernel and add annotations or labels on the node. But the CCM since no IP calls and he can gather information from hypervisor, he also can add some features like labels or annotation to the node, which we cannot get from the Linux kernel. This was my idea. Right now, we just use the instance type to share this information.
Okay.
And I noticed just additional changes, which was add some when was release notes, and notice we already add additional labels, the variables which we can pass through to the CCM framework, and that's why asking maybe we add additional. Change these regex and add capabilities to share the additional features from the CCM. I hope I understood. I explained correctly.
Yeah, I think you did. I understand what's going on here. I want to involve the people who own the network feature discovery operator though to see if this is something that should be included there, because the question that came up last time was whether we're going to collide with what the NFD operator does. And so I think we need to make sure, is it appropriate for the cloud provider to be putting this on, or should the NFD operator be putting, the NFD operator can analyze what the processor has and then should be able to appropriately put the features there, right?
Yeah, but it's just what we can get from the Linux kernel. What Linux show to us, we can get it.
Okay.
But what inside the hypervisor, we don't know.
Okay.
And the CCM can call the API and get this information and mark the nodes with additional information. for example, huge pages, 1 GB, huge pages. Usually, only we can try to allocate it if we can allocate it inside the VM. We make a prediction. The hypervisor supported when it run KMO, VM virtualization.
So here's a question. Does anybody know what SIG owns the network or the node feature discovery operator?
No.
See if I can.
I think you want the other one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Operator.
I clicked on the wrong one. I was too quick there.
Did it say the governing SIG? Sometimes there's a tag over on the side.
SIG node.
Oh, that makes sense. Node.
All right. So what I want to do now is I want to CC SIG node into this issue. So, I mean, what should I do? Should I put it should I do like area SIG node so that it gets on their list as well?
Is it slash or dash?
I was just looking at the way it puts SIG Cloud Provider up there.
But if we look at that other one that had, yeah, what is the SIG, the correct SIG label? Is it SIG?
Oh, SIG dash. Well, we're SIG. Oh, okay. I
The
see.
labels.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, look in the labels and see. That might be the correct label. I just don't know.
I think this is, if I look at how Serge did it before, yeah, this is,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Cool.
okay. All right, cool. So hopefully this will get us some attention from SIG node. And then we can Serge, I just want to make sure that we're not going to be that the appropriate group is working on it here and that we're not going to be clashing with things that they're doing. Although this has been open for a long time, so I apologize how long it's taken for us to get to.
Yeah, I forget about this issue. Because just not instance type, that's it. We can use it.
I guess the question is, do we want to triage accept this like Bridget and Walter, or should we leave it as unaccepted for now to see what SIG node has to say?
I think we should wait for SIG node to say what they want to do. I mean, I buy the argument that maybe there is a division and some of this is ours, but even there, I would like to work with SIG node and be very clear on what that division is.
Right. Okay, that makes sense to me. This seems way old.
It is way old. Did it get unaccepted? It was a life cycle issue.
Yeah, it got bumped.
Yeah,
it got bumped back out.
Right.
And then
the robot said, "Take a look again." I guess we
were giving cluster
waiting
lifecycle a chance to look at it before closing it out. I don't think there's anything to be done here. Like the cloud config already exists as a secret or whatever, if you want it to. Okay.
I mean, we've given them a month, more than a month. So it's not like it gets deleted instantly from GitHub forever. It just could be closed in order to indicate that we think it's not going to get worked on. If somebody wants to reopen it, cool. And I think you can remove the label lifecycle frozen possibly, or maybe that automatically gets removed if you close. I'm not really sure.
All right. I feel like we had a really productive triage there.
Cool. I think you need to remove the frozen label before it lets you close it. I think. Oh, did it let you close? Okay.
It did, yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. I guess it's allowed to close things or maybe that just removes the auto closing. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know
maybe.
we're just about at time. Do we want to look at any test grid or is there anything else that we should do?
I'm not
Or
sure that looking at
we
test
good?
grid is like super valuable, but let me just take a look real quickly. I'm still not convinced that like we're actually testing stuff there that we can do much about.
You're still not convinced that test grid is truth?
Yeah,
It
it
might
looks
be,
it
it
looks
might be
pretty good.
lies.
It looks pretty good.
All
It's
right.
fairly green for the last day or two.
Fantastic.
Well, there's
All right.
some failures they're dealing with. Okay. No, I think we're okay.
Okay. All right. So we will chat with y'all in a couple weeks and love to hear everybody's ideas about what should go into our SIG Cloud Provider proposal. And we'll be working on that in the next few weeks. So for KubeCon. So, all right. Thank you all for coming. See everybody next time. Bye-bye.
And Bridget.